The mayor of San Jose just released his budget proposal for the next fiscal year, and it comes with a huge budget surplus. Joining us now is Mayor Sam Liccardo to talk about it. Thanks for being here today.
Great to be with you, Ann.
So we just heard about your priorities in this $27 million surplus. First of all, you've been in politics a long time. Did you ever think you'd be dealing with something like that?
Yeah, although I should say it's not that huge given the size of our needs right now. It's a $4.5 billion budget, but clearly having any surplus at all is fantastic, and we'll always happily take that over the alternative, which has really been what we've had for many decades.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's 27, and you have to decide how to parcel it out to get the best bang for your buck, obviously. And you've been talking about homelessness and crime as a couple of main priorities.
Yeah, we're hearing clearly from our residents what they're most concerned about. Homelessness is at the top of the list, of course, but certainly concerns about rising crime, particularly assaults, violent crime, as well as blight. And so these dollars are really focused on those top three priorities.
And one of the things you mentioned, one of the proposals, just sort of trying to think out of the box, but paying some of the unhoused people to clean up the streets, taking care of two problems at one, potentially.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we launched a pilot program to help unhoused residents get a path to self-sufficiency through work, cleaning up our city. It's been incredibly successful with partnerships that we've had with Goodwill and Downtown Streets team. And so we want to get more people to work and obviously clean our city. And what we're finding is that these clients are doing really well. Many are getting hired. One just got hired by Tesla, another one by Caltrans. So we love to see them moving on to permanent work, and we're getting them housed in the meantime. So it's a real win-win.
What is your take on the governor's plan for these care courts to also try to get rid of some of these mini neighborhoods that are popping up where there's a lot of people who have mental issues or drug problems that need help?
Well, certainly support the care court concept. I know it's going to be fleshed out quite a bit in legislation. It's an important step. It's not going to be sufficient, I think, to deal with all the challenges we're facing on our streets, particularly around drug addiction and mental illness. But it's a positive step forward, so absolutely support it. We just need to do much more. We need to see much more drug treatment out there, particularly for methamphetamine addiction, which is really ravaging the streets of many California cities right now, particularly among our unhoused. It's causing them extraordinary harm. We're seeing big increases in emergency room admissions year after year. And we know it is unfortunately a source or one cause of the crime that we're seeing. And so we could certainly use more focused dollars around drug treatment. I know there was a big improvement last year in the state budget. We hope we'll see that again this year.
And then once you get past those initial challenges with a lot of the people who are unhoused right now, you simply still don't have enough housing. Part of your budget is going to go to help with that.
Yeah, building housing the traditional way would be wonderful, but we just don't have those resources. Given nearly 10,000 unhoused residents in this county, costing perhaps $800,000 per unit to build a typical apartment in an apartment building. So what we've learned through the pandemic is that we can use prefabricated modular housing, building on public land, perhaps underutilized land, and we can build much more quickly, typically in a few months rather than 4 or 5 years is typically costs it takes to build an apartment building. And we're building at a fraction of the cost of a typical apartment, perhaps $100,000 a unit or a bit more as some of these prefabricated models are getting more sophisticated. This is offering the unhoused residents a private dorm room, essentially, with private bathroom, but communal facilities for kitchens and things like that. And these communities, we've now built 3 of them. We've got a 4th under construction. We want to build more. We're really able to move a lot more people off the street into a setting that's much more dignified and hopefully a pathway to permanent housing.
Right. Okay. So this would not be somewhere where the person would live there forever.
In some cases, we can build these units to meet the federal standards for what we call a housing voucher that does enable someone to live there permanently. The goal this year is to get 1,000 of these units under development. That's going to be critical for us. We're several hundred along the way on that goal. We're nearing 400. I think we can get there.
Okay. You touched on this a little bit at the beginning when I said you have a huge surplus, the fact that it could go away very quickly. And part of the things that that could eat into that, obviously, is the loss of all the federal money that is coming in right now to pay for a lot of the COVID programs that you've been running, getting people tested, getting people vaxxed. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something the city is going to eventually support, eating away at that surplus, or are we going to let these programs, what do you call sunset away?
Well, the federal money is one time. That's it. It's gone after it's spent. So we're not depending on federal money to run programs. That'd be a bad way to do budgeting. And we're going to have to sunset an awful lot of things that we paid for with that one-time funding. The good news is this: we've been pushing for many years on pension reform to try to reduce our retirement costs collaboratively with our 11 unions. We managed to negotiate a deal that dramatically reduced costs. It's going to save us about $3 billion. The voters approved it in 2016. We're now really getting the dividend of that shared sacrifice, the belt tightening, and that is producing some of these small surpluses we're seeing now that we hope will continue. So yes, the federal money we know is one time, it'll go away. We're focused on making our fiscal situation more sustainable. And fortunately, we've been able to do it. And we hope other cities can as well, because these retirement costs are just hugely challenging.
But we can expect a lot of those COVID programs to go away as we sort of return to what we call the new normal.
Yeah, we were spending federal dollars on a whole host of programs, some of which with the intention that they would be one-time efforts. For example, spending money to build out Wi-Fi infrastructure in East San Jose, where now we're connecting 100,000 San Jose residents with broadband. It will soon be 300,000 when we're done with the build out. That's really a one-time expenditure to build out that infrastructure. And so the good news is that once that money's spent, we don't need to continue to spend money on that infrastructure. We now have it, and residents can benefit from it. In other cases, for example, with food distribution, we knew we had to distribute, in the case of San Jose, more than 2 million meals a week to families struggling. As people are getting back to work, we're ratcheting that back. And obviously, we're not going to see the same level of public support, public funding for food assistance.
Okay. Speaking of support, of course, the budget process is only now beginning with your proposal. We're going to go through several iterations of this budget. What kind of support are you seeing from the city council? How easy do you think the process is going to be?
Well, we'll know on Tuesday. I'm only able to talk to a small number of council members because a state law prohibits me from talking to the majority outside of a public hearing. So I always learn something every Tuesday, and we'll find out.
All right. Anything else you'd like to talk about today?
We know that public safety has been a rising concern throughout the state of California. And although San Jose, we've been very blessed. I think we had just about the lowest homicide rate of any major city in the country last year. The reality is we are seeing challenges with crime in different areas. And we've always had the most thinly staffed police department of any major city in the US. And it was made worse through the challenges of the Great Recession. We are now finally really rebuilding this department. We've added more than 300 positions since I've been in office. We're going to be adding more positions this year and really to rise to the challenge that we know of increasing demand for police services. And this is going to be, I think, the modern model of policing. This is going to be about officers who are walking the beat. This is not going to be officers engaged in a lot of traffic stops, which we know have been controversial in many communities. We've got officers who are going to be deeply engaged in training around racial bias, around accountability and de-escalation, all the things that we know modern police departments need to be leading in. We're going to finally start to have the resources we need in people to be able to respond to the many challenges we've got in our big city. And I'm really enthusiastic to see us restore this department.
I know a lot of departments have had trouble with recruitment, though. Do you see any challenges there?
Yeah, for many years, we had challenges with recruitment as well. But since we've resolved the battles over pension reform and we've been able to use some of those savings to boost wages, that's really addressed a lot of our retention problems. We're no longer seeing officers going to other cities. In fact, we're seeing a significant number coming from other departments into San Jose, a couple per month.
Okay, it's good news. Mayor Sam Liccardo, we appreciate your time today on CBS News Bay Area.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much, Ann.